Okay, hopefully I can stay out of this wind. This is a potential problem with this axle. I just want to kind of show it to you. See if I can hang on to this stuff and film, get that cap out of the way. There's where they wire welded the axle here, spindle to the axle. Ah, dang wind. There's beads of weld stuck to this part here. Well, this is where the seal sits. There's a pretty good one right here. So I've already done the other side, but what I've got a Nicholson points file. Some of you old timers probably know what a points file is. That's pre-electronic ignition. So I'm going to knock these down, and then I've also got some 600 grit wet or dry, which is almost like newspaper. They actually go real fine. They go like 1,000, 1,500, which is, you can't even tell there's any grit to it. But what I'm going to do is polish that up after I file it. So I want to do that before I put it on there, because I put it on there and that seal hits that little bead and lets salt water in. These bearings on this side, or that side too, are going to be shot in no time. Okay, that's it. Well, I'm making progress. Got the old axle dropped out of there. The old axle, as you can see, had a dimple in it right about here. It's got one on the other side too, I think. No, just one, but it's got a nub on both sides of that spring, so you can mount the axle over top or on the bottom. In this case, I'm going to mount it on the bottom. Now this new axle is a universal, which means it's just a little bit longer at the most. I may have to space off the fender brackets with I don't know, a piece of 3/4 inch polymer or whatever. And so what you do here, this is smaller than this, but what happens is once you get the hangers on it, get that up under on the button and start tightening, it spreads out and holds that axle from going back and forth. What you got to do is kind of just leave everything hanging loose and get it centered. You know, measure both sides, move it back and forth till you got it at, you know, same distance on each side sticking out from the spring, and then just tighten it down. I've got a 24 volt impact wrench that I'm charging right now, so if I can get it up under there, I'll use it to tighten those up. Should tighten up pretty quick. Anyway, that's where I'm at. Got the bunk hangers on. They're just hanging on there right now. I'm going to tighten one bolt up to get them straight, and then tighten the hangers up here so I can have them fixed, and get up here with a Sharpie and mark the, I've got a 10-foot pressure treated 2x6. I'll mark it, and then I've got some bolts that'll pull down into the wood. They got a round head and a square shank on them, kind of. They'll pull down into the wood, and then after I get them on there and mounted, I don't know the height on these yet, so I mean, it could be all the way. I may even have to move these bolts to this other part, because you don't want it up off the bunks. What you want to do is you want to distribute the weight all the way across if possible. So the keel is sitting on the bunk, on the rollers, and the sides of the boat are sitting on the bunk. So you've got support all around and not just in, you know, one spot. I think that's it for now. Onward and upward. Okay, that's all done. It's all, I filed the little splatters off and then hit them with that 600. And as Bobby and Kurt on the Hoover Boys are so fond of saying, smooth as Brad's butt now. So I'm going to get ready and hang this thing and start centering it. Okay, if my ciphering is correct, let's see if I can get out of this wind. Let me get it around and hold it downwind from it. From spring button to spring button on the other side with them hanging is right at 48 inches. Well, from here, which is where the weld is, to the other weld is 52.5, 52 and a half inches. So take the 4 feet out, that leaves you 4.5 inches or 2.25 inches, which is from there to there, which is where those springs are going to center. Now, it may not be exactly perfect, but I'll bet you it's going to be close enough to get me in the ballpark without being 2 or 3 inches either side. So now I'm going to go hang it. But one other thing, these things here that fit over the axle, well, when you get them, they're tight. Well, they sit up like that. So those U-bolts that go through aren't long enough with them sitting up. So what you have to do is pop them with put them on there. I put carpet underneath here on the asphalt, and then pop them with a sledgehammer to kind of set them. And so what I'll do is I'll mark that with a line 2¼ inches or 2.25 inches, and then I'll center that hole over it and tap them on there, and then raise it up and put the brackets on, supposedly. It was a good plan when we first started. Okie doke, the axle's hung, the bunks brackets are just snugged up. I got them just kind of eyeballed them so I can cut this board here in half, and then I'm going to lay it up there and mark it, drill holes in it, and then put the bolts through it, and then I've got carpet to go on it. But the fender brackets, I'm going to have to get bolts for that. I forgot to take them with me this morning, and what I might do is go ahead and cut this board real quick, and then I'll go get the fender brackets, bolts, fender bracket bolts, and then that's it. Before I actually put anything else on here, I'm going to gob some paint under here and let that sit. I guess it's through raining, who knows. It's dry right now, so hopefully. But I don't want to start painting this thing after I get everything hung on it, like the wheels and everything. I'm going to take and just cover those spindles with something so I don't overspray them. And I think we're getting real close. I still got to run the wires, but that's not a big deal for the lights. I left the old lights dangling where I can pull them up through there. Oh, and that should do it. That should be pretty much the end of the trailer work. I think I got to mount the fenders, but I think I can get this thing done and then start seeing what I need to do to that boat. It's been sitting over there, oh Jesus, couple years anyway. Alright, that's it for now. Okay, moving right along. I've got the bunks on. Put round-headed bolts. They've got kind of a square shoulder under here. That way these will be relatively flat. And you put a regular bolt up here and it sticks up. It'll may gouge your boat. I'm going to cover these with carpet. And let's see what else. I cut these at a little bit of an angle so you just don't have a blunt edge right here when you run the boat up on it. Of course, I know they're going to have to be lowered. I just did it this way so I could mark everything, get everything bolted up. So those are set. I just got to set them to the boat and tighten everything up. Now the fenders, I'm going to have to mock up one side, which I'm going to do this side. I've got a brand new hub bearing pre-packed. Now that's the way to go. Instead of buying bearing kits and races, and if you do a lot of traveling on the highway with a boat, this is the setup. These come, the whole hub, it's already packed, everything's there. You basically just spin it off. Looks like a compact disc case. Anyway, you spin it off, slide that on, put the wheel on it, and you're on your way. So let's get on with that part of it, and let me see, make sure these fender brackets are going to work. And I'm going to mock up one of the fenders here in just a minute as soon as I get a wheel on there, so I can make sure we got clearance and everything. I'll turn you back on when I get something to show you. Just to you real quick after I took it out of the case. It's got your bearing, it's all packed, 4 new lugs, it's got a Carter pin in there, got a grease cap, got your nut washer, another pin there, that's with the axle. But this is ready to go. And these, you know, you've seen the buddy bearings with the grease fitting here and the springs. Well, this has got a grease zerk fitting here, and when you grease it, it's on the bottom on this one, there's a hole that it comes out and works up this way. So you pull this off and grease it, and you see the grease come out here. Put your stuff back on, you're good to go. So it's built into the axle instead of having an aftermarket. Well, I'm not sure if this is a redo or a snafu. I'm going to categorize it as a snafu. They sold me this axle, which is nice, but the bearing and the hubs are 1 inch and the axle is 1 1/16. So that's going to have to go back. So I kind of put the brakes on the fender mock-up today. That's alright, I'll get it done eventually. It's common to do this.